Have you ever looked at some problem that just never seems to go away? Maybe that bus route that's always jammed or something else that crops up year after year. And you just find yourself thinking, why can't they fix this? It's pretty frustrating, isn't it? Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
Exactly. That's what we're diving into today, the world of public policy. We're looking at a source that asks that exact question. Why can't some problems be solved? Like Bus Route 8.
Right.
And we'll explore why these things seem to repeat. It's often not just coincidence. And crucially, why looking deeper than the obvious issue is key to finding a real solution.
Yeah, so our mission today is really, and why some results feel like they're, well, hardly a coincidence, as our source puts it. You'll get a tool, really, a shortcut, to analyze these complex challenges in governance and, how they impact society. We'll touch on what any country, maybe like Thailand, might have too much or too little of for policy to be effective.
Right. And just to set the scene, our source defines public policy pretty straightforwardly. It's about setting the direction for state agencies, aiming for broad impact.
Right.
The goal, things like stability, prosperity, and sustainability. And this involves everyone: central government, local government, executive, legislative.
Even the courts and independent bodies.
Exactly. Judicial, independent organizations, they're all part of this ecosystem.
So how does the government actually do policy? What levers do they pull?
Well, our source lays out a few key ways. Allocating budgets, obviously. Providing direct benefits. Setting rules and regulations.
Like speed limits or environmental standards.
Precisely. They might participate in markets, coordinate different groups, and even work on shaping values or the general atmosphere in society.
That last one sounds a bit subtle.
It can be, but it's important. Think about public health campaigns, for example.
Okay, got it. It's definitely multifaceted. Now, this framework you mentioned, the source suggests success can be settled in an APP. Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, it's a clever acronym. It helps remember the 3 core pillars needed for a policy to actually succeed.
Okay, let's hear them.
So the first P is for pragmatic or practicable. Basically, can the bureaucracy actually implement it?
Makes sense. What's the second P?
That's for politically supportable. Can you actually sell the idea, get buy-in?
The political side. Always tricky. And the A?
A is for advantageous. Is it technically correct? Does it offer a clear benefit?
Interesting. Practicable, politically supportable, advantageous, APP.
That's the one?
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting then. Because you need all 3, right?
Absolutely. They have to work together.
Let's dive into that first one. Advantageous or having a clear benefit. I mean, surely every policy aims to have a clear benefit. Where does it go wrong?
That's a great point. It sounds obvious, but achieving it is harder than you might think. Our source lists several key things. First, does it actually solve the problem effectively?
Its effectiveness.
Right. Is it efficient? Does society gain more than it loses? The idea of making the cake bigger,
So everyone gets a slightly larger slice, ideally.
Or at least the potential for growth is there. It should also cut down on inefficiency in the system. The overall social benefit has to outweigh the cost.
And fairness.
Crucial. Does it distribute the benefits fairly? If it just helps a select few while hurting many others, that clear benefit gets pretty muddy pretty fast.
So it's really about ensuring it's not just a good idea on paper, but genuinely impactful and fair for you listening. How do policymakers try to hit that mark?
Well, they need solid ground, sticking to good academic principles, having real-world evidence.
Not just guesswork.
Exactly. And really considering the alternatives. Did they look at other options? Is the distribution fair? What are the incentives for everyone involved? And being realistic about the trade-offs, they're always trade-offs.
Okay, let's make this concrete. The source mentioned something about selling eggs needing permission. That seems oddly specific.
It does, doesn't it? But there's a reason. It connects back to the Animal Epidemic Act. It's basically about preventing the spread of things like bird flu. So while it might feel like red tape, there's a clear intended benefit, public health. It shows that sometimes even small regulations have a specific advantageous goal.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, a much bigger example, declining birth rates.
Okay.
That's a huge issue globally, not just in one place like Thailand.
Absolutely.
Fewer kids being born, reasons seem complex, more women in the workforce, the sheer cost of raising children these days.
It's a massive challenge, and the knock-on effects are serious. Potentially slower economic growth, an aging population placing a huge strain on public finances.
So what are the proposed solutions? Just tell people to have more kids.
Well, the thinking is shifting. Our source suggests moving from just hoping for more births to focusing on the quality of childhood and education for the kids we do have.
Quality over quantity.
Sort of. And also looking at the labor force. Can we reduce the need for sheer numbers through things like automation? Can we help people work longer, maybe by raising retirement ages?
And the government's budget.
Big implications there. The state needs to be fiscally responsible, save money, spend wisely to prepare for this demographic shift.
The source mentions Singapore trying things like matchmaking or childcare subsidies.
Yeah, and interestingly, it notes those efforts were hardly successful. It shows how difficult it is to find a clear benefit solution that actually works for such a complex social issue.
Fascinating. Okay, let's switch to something many of us experience daily. Traffic. Bangkok's traffic is legendary, apparently second worst in Asia.
That's what the stats say. Something like 21 minutes for 10 kilometers, over 100 hours lost per person per year. It's rough.
I feel that. So what's a potential clear benefit solution there?
Well, one thing gaining traction, mentioned in the source, is congestion charging, like they've done in London, Singapore, and recently New York.
Charging people to drive into busy areas.
Essentially, yes. The idea is it provides a clear economic incentive to drive less or use public transport, reducing congestion for everyone. It aims for a clear benefit for the city overall, even if individuals pay.
Okay, so we've got clear benefit. But knowing the right thing to do isn't enough, right? That brings us to the second P, practicable, making it work in the real world, within the bureaucracy.
Exactly, and this is often where things fall apart. Our source mentions the three functions of bureaucracy: policy strategy, regulation operation, and public services. Getting policies through that machinery can be tough.
Let's talk about where it fails. The PM 2.5 dust problem comes up again and again. Why is that so hard to fix from a practical standpoint?
Well, there are a couple of issues highlighted. One is sometimes the thinking just isn't thorough. Maybe just putting up air quality meters without a coordinated plan.
Reactive, not proactive.
Right. But a bigger problem is often the inability to integrate work across different agencies. The dreaded government silos.
Ah, yes. Everyone working in their own little bubble.
Precisely. You've got agriculture, industry, health, transport, all potentially contributing or needing to act, but they're not coordinated. So the policy isn't practicable because the system can't deliver it effectively.
Is there any hope, like the Clean Air Law?
That's the hope, that it forces better integration. But the fundamental problem of silos often persists, making implementation the practicable part really difficult.
It sounds like a massive hurdle. But then you mentioned Estonia going fully digital. That sounds almost sci-fi.
It's quite amazing, really. They essentially rebuilt their government digitally after independence.
Wow.
So now a single digital ID gets you access to almost everything online. Registering a company, taxes, voting, health records.
Everything.
Almost. The only exceptions mentioned are marriage, divorce, and buying property.
That's incredible. How much difference does it make?
It's estimated to save the government about 2% of GDP every year in administrative costs. They use design thinking, agility, even virtual ministries, temporary teams for specific tasks. It shows what's possible if implementability is baked in from the start, like the UAE's motto, nothing is impossible.
So how can we make policies more practicable within existing bureaucracies, maybe ones that aren't born digitals?
The source suggests focusing on designing policies that are just inherently easier to implement, and using technology smartly as a tool, not just a bolt-on.
Can you give an example?
Think about the state welfare card. Identifying every single poor person accurately is incredibly difficult, leading to errors and dropouts. A more practical approach suggested is a mixed system. Maybe a small universal basic amount for everyone, plus targeted top-ups. Why? Because it's often easier to filter out people who are clearly not poor, those with big houses, fancy cars, lots of savings, than it is to perfectly identify everyone who is poor.
That's a clever switch in perspective, focusing on exclusion rather than perfect inclusion.
It's a pragmatic design choice, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes it more implementable.
And technology as a direct tool. You mentioned road safety work.
Yes, Professor Dr. Ikachai Sumali's work. They pushed for installing GPS in large trucks and buses.
What did that achieve?
It allowed for monitoring speed, routes, driving hours, and the data is clear. It led to a significant, measurable drop in injuries and deaths from accidents involving these large vehicles between 2015 and 2023.
Wow. So a relatively simple tech solution made the policy much more effective and, well, practicable.
Exactly. A perfect example.
Okay, we've covered clear benefit, advantageous, and practicable. Now, for the third leg of the stool, often the shakiest one, sellable, getting political support.
The political dimension.
The source uses this analogy, talking to a kind, busy uncle. How does that help explain sellable?
It's about framing. If you had to explain your policy to someone important but maybe not deep in the details, how would you do it? What should he do? Who needs to act? It forces you to think about clear communication and getting buy-in.
Because politics is fundamentally about navigating differences, right?
Exactly. Differences in interests, benefits, but also sometimes just beliefs and identities.
So how do you make a policy sellable when people have different interests?
Well, the source points out it's much easier if the policy helps make the cake bigger. If there's overall growth, even if distributed unevenly, it's easier to get agreement.
Because everyone feels they might gain something.
Right. Think Policy 1 gives A and B 5 units each. Policy 2 gives A 6 and B 7. Even though B gains more, A is still better off than before, making Policy 2 potentially more sellable than one where A loses out.
But what if a policy does create losers? How do you handle the resistance?
You need strategies. Transition periods can help people adjust, maybe direct assistance or retraining. Sometimes limited trials can prove the benefits. Offering compensation is another route. Or, more subtly, trying to change the underlying demand or perception over time.
And who are all the players you need to convince in this political game?
Oh, it's a whole ecosystem. Consumers, taxpayers, citizens who wear multiple hats, of course. Then you have labor groups, politicians themselves, the civil servants implementing things, big corporations, small businesses, even international companies.
Understanding what each group wants or fears seems key.
Absolutely. You have to map out their interests.
And the source mentioned something about concentrated benefits versus diffuse benefits. How does that affect sellability?
Hugely. If a policy provides a big, clear benefit to a small, well-organized group, say tax breaks for a specific industry, that group can mobilize very effectively to support it.
They have a strong incentive.
Exactly. But if the benefits are spread thinly across a huge population, like, say, a tiny improvement in air quality for millions, it's much harder for that large group to organize and push for it, even if the total benefit is massive. The individual incentive is small.
That explains a lot, like why some regulations face such strong lobbying.
It does, and it leads us to a classic example of a policy that's notoriously hard to sell, the land tax.
Ah, yes, that one keeps coming up.
It's got a really long history in Thailand, mentioned in the source, 24 years, 12 different governments trying to get it done. It finally solidified somewhat under the Prayut government, but still faced delays and wasn't fully implemented.
Why is it so politically difficult?
Well, besides the general complexity, our source highlights a very telling detail from 2017.
Okay.
Data showed 247 members of the National Legislative Assembly at the time owned land worth nearly 10 billion baht combined. One member alone held 1.2 billion baht worth.
Wow. So the people making the law had a significant personal stake in it.
That potential conflict of interest creates a massive political barrier. It makes a policy with potential broad benefits incredibly hard to sell when powerful decision makers stand to lose personally. It's a stark illustration of the sellable challenge.
It really highlights that political support isn't just about good arguments. Okay, so ultimately, how do you sell a policy effectively? The source mentions selling to grandma.
Yeah, it's a great way to think about communication. Can you explain it simply? How does it affect her life? What happens to her kids or grandkids if this problem isn't fixed? And maybe even, how can she play a part or lend her support?
Make it relatable, understandable, actionable?
Exactly, not just abstract policy jargon. And this links to another concept mentioned, the moving triangle by Asak, Professor Dr. Prasaswasi.
Moving triangle.
Yeah. It suggests change happens through 3 connected forces. 1, creating knowledge and evidence. 2, driving society, building public awareness and demand. 3, pushing politics, getting the political system to act.
Knowledge, society, politics. Moving together.
Yeah, right. You need all 3. It circles back to understanding benefits, values, and finding those win-wins to make things politically viable or sellable.
So what does this all mean for you listening at home? We've unpacked this APP framework. Advantageous, clear benefit, practicable, implementable, and sellable, politically supportable. Think of it as your new toolkit. It helps you look past the surface frustration that jammed bus route and understand the deeper reasons why some problems stick around, others actually get solved. It's about seeing the policy mechanics underneath.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Drawing on something, our source mentions that famous line from Tolstoy's Anna Karenina.
Oh, which one?
Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way.
Okay. How does that relate to policy?
Well, Maybe successful policies are alike because they manage to satisfy all three parts of that APP framework. They find a way to get the benefit, the implementation, and the political support right.
Ah, I see.
But the failures, the unhappy policies, they
Mm-hmm.
might fail in their own unique ways. Maybe the benefit wasn't clear, or it was impossible to implement, or just couldn't be sold politically. Each failure tells its own story, often highlighting a specific breakdown in one of those three areas.
That's a really interesting way to think about it. So consider the policies affecting your life or community. Which ones seem unhappy in their own way? Can you perhaps trace their struggles back to a lack of clear benefit, practicability, or sellability? What stands out to weigh you?